Hi, everyone. My name is Mike DeCoursey, and I live in Dallas, Texas. My nickname is DeCo, D-E-C-O, and that will become more important later on in this story. Earlier this year, on January 12th, I suffered a serious life-threatening event completely out of the blue related to my underlying condition of vascular EDS. I was feeling fine 1 second, but then felt a weird, sharp pain in my upper thigh groin area. I was literally just standing in my closet figuring out what shirt to wear that day. I obviously wasn't doing anything strenuous, and that's what alarmed me the most. I tried walking around a little bit in my room to see if the pain would go away. It wasn't the worst pain I'd ever felt, but it was unique. It was different. Something wasn't quite right. I may have thought some type of weird muscle strain if I was doing anything active or stretching or something. But since I was just standing still when it happened, it just didn't add up. Who knows? I may have tried to tough it out, to wait a few hours to see if the pain subsided. But thank God for the last 5 years of preparation and knowledge on the seriousness of this condition and knowing what to look out for. Knowledge truly is power, and it saved my life in this scenario. I did not find out that I had vascular EDS until I was 37 years old, about 5 to 6 years ago in late 2016. I'll speak more about the backstory of all that in a little bit, but for now, let's get back to the event. Within a few minutes of trying to ascertain what the heck was going on, the pain then led to numbness throughout my entire right leg, all the way to my foot. I could still walk on it, but it was like trying to walk with one leg that was completely asleep, that pins and needles type feeling. I knew to take it seriously, and within minutes, my wife and I were headed to the hospital. Thank God for my super strong wife and her detailed logistical planning. As I said before, preparation and knowledge was everything in this scenario. If I waited any longer, I might not be speaking to you right now, or I may be speaking with only one leg. It's even surreal to say that sentence, that is what was at stake. Within an hour or two of getting to the hospital, I was in surgery. They had done a quick CTA scan and confirmed that I had a 3.5-inch dissection of my right iliac artery leading down to my femoral artery, which was not properly allowing blood flow to get to the rest of the leg and foot, hence the numbness. Thank God the 5-hour surgery was a success 3 stents later. What a whirlwind experience of emotions. I couldn't thank the doctors and nurses enough for the great care I had while in the hospital. Miraculously, a couple days later, I was home, which leads me to the recovery. Once I was home, I was hyper-focused on my physical recovery for a couple of months, although not completely easy being taken out of my work as CEO of a software startup at a moment's notice, a company that I was very passionate about, that I helped build from the ground up. About 8 weeks later, while I was still on short-term disability, I was let go and dismissed by the board of my company. That was pretty much adding insult to injury, literally. But I know it's just another adverse experience that I will overcome. As for the recovery over the last 5 to 6 months, medically speaking, the lack of blood flow to my leg in the few hours leading up to my surgery caused a lot of damage to my nerves and muscles. I believe the way the doctor put it, within 10 minutes of lack of blood flow, certain areas can stop receiving the proper oxygen to thrive. Time is everything in acute situations such as this. Fortunately for me, for what we know right now, it seems as if they intervened with the surgery in enough time and were confident that I did not suffer any permanent damage in that leg. I still have lingering numbness in that area though. It took a solid 2 to 3 months to start feeling a bit closer to myself. I did physical therapy 2 times per week for several months. Certain normal everyday tasks are still challenging. Bending down to pick stuff up isn't what it used to be. And I have a 4 and a 7-year-old, so there are many times where bending over to pick stuff up is needed. I've had to exhibit a great deal of patience with this recovery. I'll be honest though, some days I have it and some days I don't. That's okay though. I know it's a marathon and not a sprint. And fortunately right now I'm in a great place, and not just physically, mentally as well, which in many ways has been tougher and has been the longer recovery than the physical one I've had to deal with. I am determined though, not just for myself, but for my family. These crazy life events can certainly be incredibly jolting, but it can also lead to perspective gained that you never thought possible. This experience has allowed me to grow spiritually and strengthen my relationship with God. My mantra or battle cry throughout all this has been crisis equals opportunity. Don't ask God, why is this happening to me? Instead, answer the question, why is this happening for me? I've used this setback for great, to want to help others, to inspire others. I guess now I know what it means when people say the comeback is always greater than the setback. One huge positive in all this is that I've been called to want to do more for the vEDS community. In just the last few months, I've launched a nonprofit organization called Walk with DeCo Incorporated, raising funds and awareness for vascular EDS. I launched the Walk with DeCo Mission Fundraiser, where I'm walking 4 million steps and raising $40,000 for vascular EDS by the end of 2021. I also launched a podcast called Walk with DeCo to document the mission and hopefully inspire others along the journey. And you can check out all this information at my website, walkwithdeco.com. So these initiatives are all part of my comeback story. But I'd be remiss if I didn't take a step back and revisit what I said I was going to revisit earlier on in the story, and that is fill you in on 5+ years ago when I was diagnosed with vEDS. The how of how I found out that I had this was interesting. My son was born in 2014 and had some early complications and was on a feeding tube for several months after he was born. He was aspirating when drinking milk and the nutrients weren't going where they needed to go. Fortunately, it was only for a few months and he ended up passing his swallow studies and we eventually got him off the feeding tube. However, the geneticist ultimately wanted to do a full panel on both parents just to see if anything rare or unique showed up. And unfortunately, vascular EDS showed up for me and my son. A rare disorder that I'd lived with for 35+ years of my life and I didn't even know it. But a light bulb went off in the geneticist's head when he knew what my family history was, which included my dad passing away at 49 years old when I was only 7 years old from a ruptured aortic aneurysm. So something doctors told me my whole life, that it wasn't genetic on how my dad passed away, well, unfortunately it is. There is a correlation there. And one other thing I'll mention here, since it's important to note, is that living with vEDS doesn't just impact the people living with vEDS, if that makes sense. For example, take my family of 4. My 7-year-old son and I have it, but my wife obviously doesn't. But she is just as impacted as everyone else, as a spouse and as a parent. Even my 4-year-old daughter, who fortunately doesn't have vEDS, as we got her genetic test literally within hours of her birth, since she was born just weeks after I found out about the vEDS diagnosis in 2016. Plus, I have many other members in the family tree who have also received a confirmed diagnosis of vEDS. Having said that, since we're all impacted, especially my wife, she's also been called to do more for the community since my surgery in January, and she started a prayer ministry to help encourage people during difficult moments of their vEDS journey, as well as working on a more formal Bible study to help others in the vEDS community find hope and faith. I will touch on one other thing that falls more into the category of mentally living with vEDS. Knowing the fact of how my father passed away and how it was pretty sudden and out of nowhere, the same goes with my surgery and how it happened out of nowhere, that does sometimes keep me up at night. We've talked about it on some vEDS support group calls. We all feel at times like an imaginary sniper is locked in on us, waiting to fire, or for me personally, I've described it as feeling like you're a ticking time bomb, just waiting for the other shoe to drop. But here enters the power of reframing. Soon after my surgery, I had the opportunity to present my story to a men's mastermind group that I'm a part of, and they were there to support me in a big way. I explained this feeling of the quote unquote ticking time bomb. After one gentleman heard my entire story, he said, "Deco, I don't see you as a ticking time bomb. You went through a traumatic event, you got through it, and here you are telling your powerful story just shortly thereafter. You're not a ticking time bomb, you're a bomb disposal technician." And boom, there's the power of the reframe right there. That subtle reframe is paying long-term dividends on how I positively go through life with this condition. And I hope that reframe can help others with this condition or any other rare disease or condition for that matter. Thank you for having me be a community voice and taking the time to listen to my story. Love and blessings to all.